Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a homeowner who takes pride in your DIY skills, you absolutely know the dread of that first winter freeze. And I'm not talking about waking up early to shovel the driveway. I'm talking about that sinking feeling when your heating system kicks on for the season and immediately decides to play favorites. It is literally the classic winter complaints on DIY plumbing forums everywhere. Wildly uneven heating across your house. You've got radiators near the boiler that are blazing hot, practically glowing in the dark, while the ones on the exact opposite side of the house are doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there like expensive metal ice blocks.
You know the exact scenario I'm talking about, right? You're sitting on the couch, watching TV in the living room, and it feels like a total sauna. You're practically sweating in December. But then you walk down the hall into that far bedroom, and boom, you are immediately shivering. It usually leads to this massive thermostat war in the house. You end up cranking the hallway dial up to 80 degrees, wasting an unbelievable amount of gas or oil, just to get that freezing back bedroom to a barely livable 65 degrees. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Paying top dollar for your heating bill and not actually feeling it where you sleep. Well, let me tell you right off the bat, you are far from alone in dealing with this. Almost every two-pipe heating system is going to do this over time, and it drives homeowners absolutely crazy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because the very first instinct most people have, and unfortunately the advice some less than honest contractors might give you, is to assume your central circulation pump is just too weak to push the water all the way upstairs. Listen to me. Stop right there and put your wallet away. Upgrading your pump to fix a cold room is an expensive myth. If you go out and slap a massive, high-powered pump onto your system, you aren't actually fixing the root problem. You're basically just turning your home's plumbing into a pressurized water park. You're going to waste hundreds of dollars on the part, and it's likely just going to leave you with incredibly noisy pipes that sound like a jet engine, keeping you up all night. Oh, and the best part? That far bedroom will probably still be freezing. The pump is not the problem. To fix this the right way, we need to look at what the master HVAC professionals actually do. The real solution is a technical process called hydronic balancing. Now, I know that sounds like rocket science or something you'd need an engineering degree to figure out, but it's actually an incredibly straightforward master key once you know the secret. Hydronic balancing simply means we're going to intentionally restrict the water flow to the radiators closer to your boiler. By doing this, we ensure even heat distribution all the way to the furthest, coldest radiators in the entire system. Plumbers will charge you $200 just to walk through the front door for this. But by the end of this explainer, you are going to have the insider knowledge to do this yourself for free, exactly like a seasoned pro. To understand why your house is heating unevenly, we just have to look at the basic physics of plumbing. The absolute golden rule here is this: water is lazy. It will always, without fail, take the path of least resistance. Think of the hot water leaving your boiler like traffic on a packed highway. If all the exit ramps are wide open, everyone is going to take the very first exit they see, rather than driving all the way to the end of the road. That hot water is going to rush right through those first few radiators on the circuit simply because it's the easiest, shortest path back to the boiler. By the time it's supposed to get to the end of the line, your freezing bedroom, it has completely skipped the rest of the house. So our job today is to act like traffic cops and make those first few exits just a little less inviting. Moving on to the actual hands-on stuff, let's start with our foundational prep work. Before you can balance a single thing, you absolutely must bleed the trapped air out of your radiators. Why does this matter so much? Well, because air is much lighter than water, it naturally collects right at the very top of your radiators. Over time, it forms this invisible, highly pressurized wall that literally blocks the hot water from entering the metal fins. So grab a radiator key and find the bleeder valve, which is usually right at the top on the side opposite the thermostat. Grab an old rag too, because this water is going to be dirty. Open that valve slowly. You'll hear a sharp hiss of escaping air. Keep it open until you get a nice, steady stream of water without any sputtering bubbles. And then lock it tight. You'll need to do this for every single radiator in the house. Now, understanding the specific hardware we're manipulating today brilliantly illustrates how this whole process works. Plus, mixing these up will totally ruin the project. Every modern radiator has two distinct valves, and it's vital you know the difference. On one side, you have the thermostatic radiator valve, or TRV. That's the big plastic knob with the numbers on it. Think of that as the family valve, the one anyone in the house turns daily to tweak the room's temperature. On the opposite bottom side, usually hidden under a little plastic cap, is the Lockshield valve. You're going to need an Allen key or an adjustable wrench for this one. Think of the Lockshield as the master control. This valve is strictly used for balancing the system, and as the newly trained expert in the house, it is the only one you're going to touch for this process. All right, here is the crucial initial setup for our 15-minute balancing act. We need to create a worst-case scenario baseline so we can track exactly what that lazy water is doing. First, fire up your central heating on full blast. Make sure that thermostat is calling for heat.
Next, walk through your house and open every single TRV family valve knob to maximum. Finally, pop off the plastic caps from all your Lockshield valves and open them fully by turning them counterclockwise with your Allen key. We want maximum water flow absolutely everywhere in the house. We are basically letting the system run wild right now, just so we can rein it back in.
With the system fully open, grab your Allen key, grab your thermometer, and march straight to the radiator that is physically closest to the boiler along the pipework. Remember, because we just opened every single valve in the house, that lazy water is going to take this very first exit in massive quantities. This particular radiator is going to heat up extremely fast. Honestly, it might even be too hot to touch in just a few minutes. This blazing hot chunk of metal is our official starting point for the balancing process.
When you're standing in front of that first radiator, here is the exact metric you need to hit. In the HVAC world, this is known as delta T. Grab your infrared thermometer. A cheap $20 one from the hardware store works absolutely perfectly for this. First, measure the temperature of the pipe bringing hot water in, which is your flow pipe. Then, measure the pipe taking cooler water out, which is your return pipe. You are looking for that return pipe to be exactly 20 to 27 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, cooler than the flow pipe. Why this specific drop? It's basically the Goldilocks zone. If the water leaves at the exact same temperature it entered, the room didn't absorb any heat. If it leaves freezing cold, the water is moving way too slowly. That 20 to 27 degree drop means the room is absorbing the heat perfectly without hogging all the hot water from the rest of the house.
Now, what's really interesting about this next step is how we actually force that ideal temperature drop. We are going to choke the flow. Take your Allen key and turn that Lockshield valve completely, 100% closed. Now carefully open it up just a quarter, or maybe a half turn. That is it, just a tiny crack. Now here is the hardest part. Wait exactly 10 minutes. Heating systems are a lot like giant cruise ships on the ocean. They take a long time to turn. You cannot just tweak a valve and expect to see results in 5 seconds. Let the system catch up, then measure the temperature drop again. By severely restricting this first easiest valve, you are physically blocking the lazy water, forcing it to bypass this radiator and travel further down the line to your freezing rooms.
From here, the process is just a cascade. You're just repeating those exact same steps as you walk through your home. Move from the radiator closest to the boiler, room by room, pushing the water step by step toward the one furthest away. Because the water pressure naturally drops as you get further from the heat source, you'll need to open the Lockshield valves wider and wider to hit that exact same 20 to 27 degree temperature drop. So the first room might be open just a quarter turn. The next room, maybe a full turn. By the time you finally reach that freezing bedroom at the very end of the circuit, its Lockshield valve will usually need to be completely 100% wide open to catch whatever water makes it to the end of the line.
Before you go declaring victory and putting all your tools away, I have to call it the biggest rookie mistake that amateurs make. Do not, under any circumstances, try to balance your system using the big plastic TRV knobs. Remember, the TRV is the family valve, designed for everyday temperature adjustments. There's literally nothing worse than spending an hour perfectly balancing your house, finally getting that back bedroom nice and warm, only for someone to walk through the living room, decide they're a little too warm, twist the TRV knob, and instantly ruin all your hard work, throwing the entire house right back out of balance. Always, always use the hidden lock shields. Controlling that master valve is what separates the pros from the amateurs. Speaking of pros, here is the absolute ultimate trade secret hack that even some lazy plumbers forget to do. Once you've spent the time getting your system perfectly balanced, grab a piece of masking tape and a Sharpie. Write down the exact number of Lockshield turns you made on that specific radiator. For instance, write 1/2 turn open. Stick that piece of tape right on the inside of the Lockshield's plastic cap before you pop it back on. Someday, you might have to take that radiator completely off the wall to paint the living room or change the wallpaper. Because you used the Sharpie hack, you won't lose your baseline. You can just bolt the radiator back on, turn the valve exactly 1/2 turn, and restore perfect hydronic balance in 2 seconds flat. And just like that, you've completely transformed how your house heats itself. You started with a freezing back bedroom and a boiling living room, and now you have total even control across the entire property. You didn't buy a massive, expensive pump that would turn your pipes into a roaring jet engine. You didn't tear out any drywall, and best of all, you just did what most people pay hundreds of dollars for, armed with nothing but an Allen key and a cheap thermometer. You saved yourself a standard $200 minimum plumber call-out fee, all in just a little bit of straightforward work. So, with your house finally perfectly warm and a couple $100 saved in your pocket, the only question left is, what DIY project are you going to conquer next?